Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what storm you're facing today, but I came to tell you, your breakthrough is coming. You may be feeling weary, like you've been praying, believing, waiting, and nothing seems to change. But listen to me. God has not forgotten you. He is moving even when you can't see it. In the Bible, we see men and women who faced impossible odds. Joseph in the prison, Daniel in the lion's den, the Israelites at the Red Sea. It seemed like there was no way out, no hope in sight. But just when they were ready to give up, God showed up. Maybe right now, you're standing at your Red Sea. Maybe you feel like you're stuck in the wilderness. But let me remind you, delay is not denial. What looks like a setback is often a setup for something greater. The enemy wants you to believe it's over, that you'll never get out of debt, that your family will never be restored, that your healing will never come. But I came with a word today. Don't quit before your miracle. Your breakthrough is just on the other side of your perseverance. You see, before God promotes, he prepares. Before David became king, he was a shepherd. Before Joseph ruled, he was a prisoner. Before Jesus rose, he suffered the cross. Your trials are not meant to destroy you. They are meant to develop you. Delay is not denial. When we pray, when we dream, when we work towards something and it doesn't happen as quickly as we hoped, it's easy to become discouraged. It's easy to think that maybe it's never going to happen, that maybe we missed our opportunity, or worse, that God has forgotten us. But just because your blessing hasn't arrived yet doesn't mean it's not on the way. God's timing is perfect. He sees the full picture while we only see a small piece. What may feel like an unnecessary delay is often divine preparation. Think about the story of Joseph in the Bible. God gave him a dream that one day he would be a leader, that he would be in a position of authority. But instead of stepping into that dream immediately, Joseph was sold into slavery by his own brothers. He was falsely accused and thrown into prison. Year after year passed, and it seemed like his life was moving in the opposite direction of what God had promised. But in all of that time, God was working. Joseph's delay was not a denial. It was a season of preparation. When the right moment came, he was taken from the prison to the palace in a single day. The promise was fulfilled, not a moment too soon and not a moment too late. Many times we feel like we're stuck in a holding pattern. We see others moving ahead, receiving breakthroughs, stepping into their dreams, and we wonder, Lord, when is it my turn? But if you knew what God was setting up behind the scenes, you wouldn't be discouraged. You would be excited. Sometimes the reason for the delay is that what you're asking for is too small compared to what God actually has planned for you. You might be praying for a small promotion, but God is preparing you for an entirely new level of influence. You might be asking for the right door to open, but he's building a door so much bigger than you imagined. If he gave it to you too soon, you might not be ready to handle it. We live in a world of instant gratification, where everything is expected to happen immediately. But God doesn't operate on human schedules. He is never late, and he is never early. He is always right on time. That means if you're waiting, it's not because you've been forgotten. It's because there is a process unfolding that you can't yet see. God is strengthening you, developing you, teaching you, and molding you so that when the blessing arrives, you'll be fully prepared to walk in it. So don't let delay discourage you. Don't mistake waiting for rejection. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. Keep believing, keep trusting, and keep preparing. When the right moment comes, what God has planned for you will unfold in a way that you never could have imagined. And when it does, you'll look back and realize that the wait was worth it, because God's timing is always perfect. Trials are tests, not traps. The struggles you are facing today may feel overwhelming, but they are not meant to destroy you. They are designed to prepare you, to strengthen you, to shape you for the breakthrough that's ahead. Every difficulty, every hardship, every setback has a purpose. When you walk through seasons of pain, it's easy to wonder if you've been forgotten or if life is just unfair. But the truth is, every great person, every strong leader, every person of faith has walked through trials that tested their endurance, their character, and their trust in God. Look at the story of Job. He was a righteous man, faithful in all his ways, yet he lost everything: his wealth, his health, his children. The enemy wanted to use this trial to break him, to make him give up on his faith. But Job didn't let the trial trap him. Instead, he let it refine him. He held on to his trust in God even when everything around him seemed hopeless. And because he endured, he came out on the other side with double the blessing, double the strength, and a testimony of God's faithfulness. David was anointed to be king, but before he ever sat on the throne, He spent years running for his life from Saul. Every moment in hiding, every battle he faced, every hardship he endured was a test. It wasn't a trap to keep him from his destiny. It was a training ground to prepare him for it. If David had never faced trials, he wouldn't have had the strength, the wisdom, or the leadership ability to be the king that God called him to be. When we go through struggles, we often ask, why is this happening to me? But a better question is, what is this preparing me for? The pain you feel today is not wasted. The doors that close, the disappointments, the betrayals, the challenges, they are all shaping you for something greater. Gold is refined in the fire. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Strength is built through resistance. Your trials are not a punishment, they are a process. If you look back at your life, you'll see that some of the hardest moments you've been through were actually the moments that shaped you the most. Maybe that failure forced you to grow. Maybe that loss deepened your faith. Maybe that struggle taught you perseverance. And now, looking back, you realize that what seemed like a painful setback was actually preparing you for something bigger. God never wastes pain. What the enemy means for harm, God will use for good. Every tear, every long night, every moment of uncertainty is working together to make you stronger, wiser, and more prepared for what's coming next. So instead of seeing trials as traps designed to hold you back, see them as tests meant to push you forward. If you endure, if you trust, if you keep moving forward, you will see that everything you've been through is leading you to the breakthrough that God has in store for you. Faith over fear. Every day we are faced with a choice to believe in what we see or to trust in what God has promised. The enemy wants you to look at your situation and believe that you'll never make it, that you'll never rise above your struggles, that your dreams will never come to pass. Fear whispers, what if it doesn't work? What if you fail? What if you're not good enough? But faith speaks louder. Faith declares, my story isn't over yet. God is still working. He has a plan, and I will not give up. Fear has a way of magnifying problems, making them seem bigger than they really are. When the Israelites stood before the promised land, they saw giants in the land and immediately believed they were too small, too weak, too unqualified to possess what God had already given them. Fear convinced them that they would fail before they even tried. But Joshua and Caleb had a different spirit. They saw the same giants, but instead of fear, they chose faith. They believed that if God had promised them the land, then no giant, no obstacle, no challenge could stand in their way. The only difference between them and the others was perspective. One group saw defeat, the other saw victory. When Peter stepped out of the boat to walk on water, he did the impossible as long as his eyes were fixed on Jesus. But the moment he looked at the wind and the waves, fear took over and he began to sink. The storm had been there all along, but as long as his faith was stronger than his fear, he was able to rise above it. Fear will always try to pull you under, but faith will keep you walking on water. The enemy's greatest weapon is doubt. If he can get you to doubt your calling, your purpose, your worth, then he can keep you from stepping into the destiny God has for you. But faith silences doubt. Faith says, I may not see it yet, but I know God is working. I may feel weak, but his strength is made perfect in my weakness. I may have failed before, but my failure is not final. Faith is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward in spite of it. God never promised a life without obstacles, but he did promise that he would be with us through them all. He didn't say we wouldn't face storms, but he did say that the storm wouldn't destroy us. The difference between those who give up and those who overcome is not talent, luck, or ability. It's faith. The kind of faith that refuses to let fear win, that keeps believing when everything says to quit, that stands firm when the battle is hard. No matter what you're facing today, remember that fear may try to tell you it's over, but faith says your story is still being written. Keep believing, keep trusting, keep moving forward because God is not finished with you yet. Preparation before promotion. Before God takes you to the next level, he prepares you for it. Every great leader, every strong believer, every person who has ever stepped into their destiny had to go through a season of preparation first. It is in the waiting season that character is built, faith is strengthened, and skills are developed. Many times we want the promotion without the process. But God knows that without preparation, we wouldn't be able to sustain the blessing he has in store for us. David was anointed to be king as a young shepherd boy, but he didn't take the throne immediately. Instead, he spent years tending sheep, learning how to lead, how to fight, how to trust God in the wilderness. It wasn't wasted time, it was training time. When he faced Goliath, he wasn't afraid because he had already faced the lion and the bear in the field. The battles he fought in private prepared him for the victory that would be seen in public. If he had skipped the preparation, he wouldn't have been ready for the promotion. Joseph had a dream that he would be a ruler, but before he stepped into that position, he was betrayed, enslaved, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. It seemed like everything was going wrong, but in reality, everything was going exactly according to God's plan. In Potiphar's house, Joseph learned leadership. In prison, he learned wisdom and patience. By the time he stood before Pharaoh, he was not only ready to lead, he was prepared to do it with excellence. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before leading the Israelites out of Egypt. Jesus spent 30 years in preparation before 3 years of ministry. Paul spent time in isolation and study before preaching the gospel to the world. The pattern is clear. Before God promotes, he prepares. And often that preparation happens in places that feel hidden, in seasons that feel slow, in moments where it seems like nothing is changing. But those seasons are not wasted. They are where strength is built, where faith is tested, and where endurance is developed. The waiting season is not a punishment, it is a process. God is shaping you, molding you, and refining you so that when the door opens, you will be ready to walk through it. If the opportunity comes too soon, it can be overwhelming. A foundation that is not solid will crumble under pressure. But when God prepares you, he makes sure that you have everything you need to step into the next level with confidence and ability. Sometimes the greatest test in the preparation season is patience. It's trusting that even when you don't see movement, God is working behind the scenes. He is not delaying you. He is developing you. So don't rush the process. Embrace it, learn from it, grow through it. Because when the time is right, when God knows you are ready, the promotion will come and you will be able to step into it fully equipped for what lies ahead. The power of perseverance. Life is filled with challenges, setbacks, and moments that test our strength. It's easy to start something when we're excited, when the vision is clear, and when everything is going well. But what happens when obstacles arise, when progress is slow, or when doors seem to close? That is when perseverance becomes the key. Perseverance means pushing forward even when it's hard, even when you feel like giving up, even when the results don't seem to match the effort you're putting in. It is the determination to keep going, knowing that your miracle, your breakthrough is on the other side of endurance. So many people quit too soon. They pray for a breakthrough but stop believing right before it happens. They start working toward a goal but walk away when it takes longer than expected. They begin to trust God but lose faith when things don't go their way. But those who experience victory are the ones who refuse to quit. They may get tired. They may feel discouraged, but they don't stop. They keep pressing forward, knowing that what God has promised will come to pass in his perfect timing. Think about the story of the Israelites as they marched around the walls of Jericho. God told them to march for 7 days, and on the 7th day, the walls would fall. Now imagine if they had stopped on the 6th day because they didn't see results. They would have been one step away from their miracle, but would have missed it because they gave up too soon. The same is true in our lives. Sometimes we are just one more prayer, one more step, one more act of faith away from our breakthrough. Look at the life of Job. He went through unimaginable suffering. He lost his family, his health, his wealth. Yet he refused to curse God. He endured the pain, the loss, and the questions, but he didn't quit. Because of his perseverance, God restored everything to him in greater measure. His story teaches us that trials are temporary, but God's faithfulness is eternal. If we hold on, if we trust, even when it's hard, we will see restoration, healing, and breakthrough. Perseverance is what separates those who fulfill their destiny from those who give up along the way. David didn't become king overnight. He endured years of running from Saul, facing battles, and living in caves before he stepped into his calling. Joseph endured betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment before he reached the palace. Every great testimony is built on perseverance. God never promised an easy path, but he did promise that he would be with us every step of the way. When we keep pressing forward, despite the obstacles, despite the delays, despite the opposition, we prove that our faith is greater than our fear. The enemy wants you to quit because he knows what's coming if you don't. But if you hold on, if you keep trusting, if you refuse to give up, your miracle will come and you will see the fulfillment of everything God has promised. So don't give up. Don't let discouragement win. Keep walking, keep believing, keep praising, because your breakthrough is coming. Can I get an amen?